So welcome to our next episode of Interviewing the Experts. I'm very pleased to be joined by Darryl Bannan and Fergus Gallagher, two of our valued members of our community. So first of all, a bit about me for those who don't know. So my name's Joel Kirkland. I'm Managing Director of Focus on Workday. I've been in the Workday ecosystem for 5 years, and I lead a global team of 15 dedicated Workday recruiters. So I'm going to hand over to Darryl to introduce himself and tell us a bit about him.
Thanks, Joe. Hi, everyone. I'm Darryl. So my background is as a qualified accountant, qualified 20 odd years ago now. Don't want to give the exact number, it's ages of me. And started out working in finance before moving into a variety of finance system roles, firstly for Oracle and Hyperion, and joined the Workday ecosystem back in 2018 when I joined Kainos, who are a Workday partner based out of Belfast. And in that time, since 2018, I've worked on around 14 or 15 Workday projects, a mixture of launch and your way, but mainly launch. And I'm a big fan of launch projects, which I'll talk more about during the course of this call.
Excellent. And Fergus?
I'm Fergus Gallagher. I've worked on HCM systems. I was just adding it up, actually, for over 24 years. I know I don't look it. Initially I worked predominantly on PeopleSoft, and for the vast majority of that time with Royal Bank of Scotland Group. And now I've moved on to working on Workday in 2012 with Direct Line, and I've worked on Workday ever since. So what's that, 12 years on Workday, predominantly on Workday implementations, the large and the small, and worked with Darryl most recently on a launch project with UKIB.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks very much, guys. So that sort of segues nicely into the first question. So you're both working together on a full platform implementation. So are there any differences when you're implementing HCM and financials together versus one or the other?
Yes, good question, Joel. So I think from a finance perspective, the main difference is the fact that as part of the foundation data model or FDM design, you need to be much more aware of the HR requirements during a full platform deployment. You need to engage those HR specialists early to ensure that when you're building that FDM, you're engaging with them, making sure they have the right structures in terms of cost centers, organizations. Do they need any custom organizations? They need a certain structure which is different to the finance team, and making sure you bring them along on that journey. Whereas when it's a finance only project, you pretty much have carte blanche to design the FDM for the finance team solely.
Yeah, from the HCM perspective, you're giving up some of your design to finance, especially the cost centers, locations that you would normally manage yourself. What I found very interesting working with Darryl is we knew these challenges already and worked quite closely together to ensure that we delivered the right solution for the customer. These data models are really intrinsic to the success of a Workday implementation, because you hang all your reports off clean, strong data structures, and you want them to be consistent and strong for years, because that's where good quality reporting will come from, which is one of the asset values of a Workday implementation.
Okay,
I
excellent
would say,
stuff.
Joe, I would say on that point as well, one of the benefits from doing a full platform from a finance perspective is the fact having the workers in the tenant along with their supervisory orgs allows you then to have better and stronger approval processes in place for things like expenses and requisitions and invoices, because you've got that supervisory org structure there by HR for you. You don't need to maintain it yourself as part of finance. It's all there for you, built by the experts, which is a massive benefit for those approval chains.
And actually, I alluded to, I've got a few years working on HCM systems. I would suggest that one of the biggest battles was always between HR and finance over headcount. And when you deliver a solution where both finance and HR are looking at the same system, people start talking about completely different conversations because these things have gone. It really is a brilliant solution in that respect.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So let's look specifically at launch then. How should you approach a full platform launch project?
It's a tough one, Joel, because I think a lot of people are approaching the project. They expect to see some return on their investment fairly quickly on day one. And whilst you should expect to see some of that return, you should always prepare for the fact that on day one, you won't be in the perfect place on your Workday journey. Going live on day one is just part of that journey and part of the process. Look at a launch project. You're going live in 26 weeks in some cases, sometimes often less. Compare that to the old school ERP projects I worked on years ago with Oracle and other ERPs. You're looking at 12, 18 months. And so you need to be aware that in those 26 weeks, you're only going to get to a certain point, and you have to accept that maybe good is good enough to get you live on that Workday journey sooner, rather than spending 12, 18 months in design, in test, when actually you can go live quicker and start seeing benefits on day one, if you accept you won't be perfect on day one.
Yeah, you stole my phrase there, Darryl. Good is good enough.
Absolutely, I love that one myself.
It's really important to understand what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to get some very important systems into a live state in a very short period of time. And that then people all around the project need to buy into that and to understand that is very important. On the HCM side, you have to just make sure the data is secure and as clean as possible for your go live. You're going to not bring every data item over. You're going to bring what you need to get Workday live. And typically you're paying people correctly in the first month. It is and that the data is secure and accurate. It is the best place you can be. After that, other things are a plus, and you may have to be hand-holding the business through those rocky first 2-3 months.
And I would say, Joe, on that point as well, around think about engaging. This may be a theme of this call today. Actually, think about engaging some Workday experts quite early on in the process as well.
Sure.
Because when you're looking at the contracting and statements of work that you'll be given by your Workday partner, some of those, quite difficult to actually understand and read. They'll say these are the 4 business processes that are in scope for that functional area. That may not mean much to many clients at that point in their Workday journey. If you engage with those experts early, they can perhaps translate that to what that means in terms of what day-to-day processes you can have configured for you from that day one. Workday Community is obviously an amazing resource, and there's loads of good stuff on there around demos and features and functionality. But it can be dangerous when it comes to launch projects, where people start looking at those videos, those amazing features, and expect those on day one on a launch. That isn't going to happen. And that's where you perhaps need those experts to try and help you manage expectations for day one and start preparing almost that roadmap for post day one fairly early on the project. So everyone knows and they're clear on that journey that day one is the part of that journey and the optimization happens afterwards.
You often, I don't know how you feel, Darryl. You're often a communicator.
12 months, Fergus. It's Darryl.
You're often a communicator between the business and the implementation partner, talking both sides' language, so that you can ensure that people understand what they're being asked and to come up with appropriate answers within the timescales that you've got, because you don't have much time at all. Even using the phrase, the word supervisory organization, if you walk into a non-Workday environment, people are not really sure what that means. And even when you explain what it means, it still may not resonate. That expertise comes in to try and bring that collaboration together and actually allow people to make decisions which are going to benefit themselves going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when we whenever we partner with organizations that are going through launch or any project, actually, one of the key things for us to help ensure the success of the implementation is to engage the right experts. It's absolutely crucial. We use words like assurance, safe pair of hands. And the earlier we can get someone on who's been there, done it, seen the pitfalls, understands not just the terminology, but can look forward into the future and kind of predict the challenges, the better. Really, it's our job to make sure that project goes smoothly. And the first thing we'll do is look at the team and look at who the customer has got and make recommendations around what skills they need and why. It's absolutely crucial to gearing up for success in the long run. So, why do you think customers are choosing Launch?
I mean, for me, it's a case of being able to get live quicker and start getting a return on that investment in Workday much sooner than they would do with a Your Way project, which can take 12 to 18 months. I recall working on projects back in the Oracle days where you would be in design for maybe 3 or 4 months and you're going live even maybe a year later. In that time, businesses change.
Sure.
People change, the team changes, requirements change, and it's hard to then test and go live with what you've said was going to be the solution a year ago. With Workday, you go live and launch, you go live quicker and have that platform then to build on. And if things change then, Workday is built for change. Workday is built to handle your changing organization, your changing requirements. So once you're there, it's easy to then pivot and make those changes rather than trying to do it during a 12, 18-month project towards the end whilst you're in a test cycle.
Projects are challenging. It's a real drain on resources. So using Launch, you can do this over a much shorter period of time. And then you focus on your future state, your future model. Because Workday will force change. I've not been on a Workday implementation where there hasn't been significant change within the business. And Workday is then part of that landscape and it can help form the future.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Okay, so all goes well. You go live. Talk us through what happens next.
Well, Fergus and I used to use 2 words very frequently during our time on our previous client, and they were stabilization and optimization. You should always be looking for that post-go-live period of a stabilization period where you bed in Workday, you resolve those early day issues. That can take up to between 4 and 6 weeks, hopefully, during your hypercare period. And then once you're stable and people are getting used to using Workday, that's where you then look at that roadmap and look at optimizing your Workday platform. That's where you then look at those features that perhaps you've seen during the course of your training or during the course of navigating around community, and you work with perhaps a partner or some Workday experts to help you deploy those new features and functionality. I almost see it as a bit like an analogy of moving into a house. Where you move into a house, you get your stuff in there, and then you work out where you want to put that spare bedroom, where you want to put the pool table, the games room, if you've got all those nice features. And that's when you do the extension. That's when you build the extension, put the furniture in the right places. Once you're in Workday and you get used to using it and start seeing the features and the ability to do what you can do, and also the reporting features for people in finance, that's where you then can choose where you want to spend your money, spend your time in developing those features further.
Yeah, I mean, stabilization for me is, okay, we're paying people, data's still secure, then let's start looking at the processes around people and we're going to get feedback from the business. Certain things aren't going to be liked. I've not been on an implementation where we've not allowed the business to then rationalize the business processes that we've gone live with. Most of the decisions you make around business processes are based on what you know from your previous systems. And then you get Workday. It's a really heavy audited system. So a lot of those extra authorizations, people start being comfortable with notifications or reports and get much more comfortable with the system around that level of authorization that you may need for certain transactions. You want a more user-friendly system. So hopefully you haven't got too much that isn't user-friendly, but you will certainly make it more user-friendly in those coming months. And stabilization and optimization sometimes is just the level of tolerance of where you are with some of those processes and how much you're that they're working for you. Some companies are going live and it's their first ERP system, so it looks a lot better than what they had previously. And other companies are going from a very well polished system to Workday, and then it needs repolishing.
It's worth saying as well, don't get too hung up on the design decisions you made during those design workshops once you're live. There may well be good reasons why you put on 4 levels of approval on a PO during that design workshops, but then you start seeing it in practice and realise, actually, it's overkill. Maybe we should scale back those approvals. PO's taking too long to get approved. Be prepared to pivot. As long as you've got the right controls in place, be prepared to change your views on what was right back in design now that you're live.
Also, the business are learning. They're learning about Workday and how it does things, and that learning does not stop. It continues, and as people get used to the system and think, that's what it really works like, that's how it feels, they get a far better perspective on what they really want.
Yeah, good stuff. Excellent feedback. So we alluded to a bit earlier that it's really important to have the right people through the project. Give us your opinion or your take on the sort of staffing models, through implementation and then into stabilization and optimization.
I mean, to me, there's no single answer that works all the time for all clients, but we do know the one way to fail is to try and get your finance or HR teams working on the project alongside their day jobs. A Workday project, particularly a launch project, is pretty intense. There are milestones regularly, moving on from workshops, which can be 4-day workshops, into workbooks, into testing, into preparing for go live, preparing to cut over, and then you're live. Before you know it, you are live. You can't do your day job whilst working on the project. So definitely need to have some sort of expertise. We've seen it in the past. People have backfill their finance team and get those guys onto the project, get them trained up fairly quickly onto Workday, and have them working as SMEs alongside the partner. Alternatively, and my view, which is probably the better option, is get someone who's a Workday expert, perhaps been on the Workday partner side or has seen other Workday projects, get them on board, have them working with your HR and finance teams, and they can work with the partner. Firstly, keep the partner honest, make sure they're doing what they should be doing, ask those challenging questions, and then make sure that they're working for you. They can provide you extra support as well in terms of during the design workshops where the partner might have a limited scope to deliver a design workshop and a set of demonstrations. That person you bring on board, who's the expert, may be able to provide you additional information, do extra demonstrations outside of those sessions to help you understand what it is you're being asked by the partner during those design workshops, because it isn't always clear.
Yeah, I think what that expertise brings is the ability to know where you might need to put extra focus, and to know where you can just allow what's happening just to continue. It's building up that trust. I think expertise brings confidence within the project that you're actually able to have those conversations with Workday or the implementation partner. Often, when I go onto a project, the atmosphere between the client and the implementation partner hasn't always been great. And I've helped to improve that relationship. I think it's really about building up those relationships as well. I'd also suggest that a very good PM is very important to help with that relationship, to help keep key stakeholders engaged, and to keep that buy-in. And also go live. Unless there's a real showstopper, there can be a lot of noise around a project. Go live on that date. Try and make sure that you're going to hit that date and you can manage stuff fixing forward once you've gone past that place.
And then, Joe, I guess your second point of the question around models for post go live and that support process. I'd say there's a number of ways you can do that. We've seen clients who use an AMS partner and have very little in-house skill. Others perhaps have more in-house skill and then use an advisory type partner to help with them the more complex areas. And again, there's no right or wrong answer on that. It comes down to who you've got in-house maybe already who can do those that support as a front line versus if you want to outsource that completely. But I would say it's worth thinking about that fairly early on in the project. If you are going to keep those skills in-house, get those people identified, get them on the workshops, on the training, get them involved in design so they understand the reasons why decisions have been made during the project and can then make sure those are kept in place during the post-go-live support.
Yeah, and I try and work as closely as possible to those people who are going to be supporting the system going forward, then pass as much knowledge on as possible, show them my thought process around certain challenges, and also, it will improve their ability to support the system going forward if they are engaged with people who've got expertise in doing this in the past.
Yeah, very good. Absolutely agree. I mean, typically we'll look to deploy an SME, as I explained, through the implementation process, someone who's been there, seen it, done it. And for launch, we always look for a wide skill set because of the speed of the project and because that's where the value is, getting someone who's got a nice rounded skill set. Once you move into optimization and stabilization, there can be further project work involved. So I think you want to keep hold of those SMEs if you can, or bring in specific expertise if you're doing certain SKUs within Workday, certain modules, and then look at what's your future state. So who's going to be supporting the product moving forward further down the line, and typically that could be permanent headcount, ensuring that knowledge transfer that you both alluded to from your SMEs who are Workday experts who have been helping you implement. So that's typically how it looks from our side. One very interesting point to add in terms of resourcing, but also in terms of scope, is the responsibilities on the client side. Walk us through what the client needs to do when they're deploying through launch.
I think the key point for me is a recognition early of the timescales and make sure that's communicated to the key stakeholders. You'll try and go live in 26 weeks, which is a challenging timescale for any project of this scale. So make sure that people are aware of that and know that on day one, they aren't going to get that perfect solution. You mentioned before, good is good enough for day one. And make sure you start making sure people know that it's going to be the case around the business. I'd also say it's a big investment for the people as well, in terms of the time investment they're going to have to give to the project. If you're going full platform with a number of functional areas and HR and fins, there will be a number of long, intense, full day workshops on each of the functional areas, and there will be homework from those. There'll be workbooks that need to be completed, and there'll be questions to ask your colleagues and your peers. So expect to have that heavy investment in time during design, which doesn't ease off afterwards. You then go straight into unit testing, and there may be timing implications then. And then after that, you're into end-to-end testing, where it's your first chance to the client to really start kicking the tires and test those end-to-end processes. Don't underestimate how much effort and time is required in that process. The lack of testing here will burn you later when you are live.
Yeah, I think it's really important that everyone involved in the project understands why you're doing it and has a clear perspective on that. It's a strategic tool that is going to help take your business forward and enable, I go back to talking about the arguments between finance and HR over headcount. We boiled some time over that over the years. These days, both HR and finance directors are walking away with so much data that's of excellent quality. It's really taking their conversations to a different place. They want to know diversity, headcount, figures by any sort of split. They've got it at their fingertips. We're looking at learning, data, and everything that it's just of a high quality. So the strategy is to get you there. That's the reason why you're doing it. Don't try and be perfect. Good is good enough, but don't try and be perfect. Perfection is a type of procrastination. You just need to take everyone on that journey, and that journey is about going live on time. Try and keep your CRs as low as possible. Those change requests will burn budget and affect your ability to then really improve the system going forward. Those first 2-3 months are hard work. It doesn't stop there, and have a bit of budget for that and make sure that you're at least getting yourselves live and into a successful state. Nothing is more disappointing, I think, sometimes when you know that more work needs to be done. You've gone live and the budgets get cut. Just be aware of that. You need to invest in that system, keep it going forward. I'm sure a few people watching this podcast will have been on implementations where budgets got cut, and lo and behold, 2 years later, there's a huge reinvestment in the solution.
So, folks, on that point on CRs is really important as well. It's about that drain on the budget, but also the drain on time. CRs can be a distraction. They can be, your focus is getting live with what you need to have live on day one. A CR can often be that distraction you don't need at that point in time. And I would say the client team need to get used to hearing the phrase, that's not in scope, during the course of those design workshops, during the course of testing. And the partner who says that aren't being difficult, but it's not in scope, and they're saying it for your benefit. They know the more you put into scope, the more scope creep there is during that course of design and testing, the more at risk you are of going live on time. And once you delay a go live once, it becomes easier to delay it again and again and throw more changes in there.
Yeah, good stuff.
Those changes often get scrubbed. A lot of those late changes often get scrubbed, and you rethink it when you actually see the solution in production.
Excellent. So just sort of developing that point, obviously full platform implementation, launch, lots of moving parts, quite a strong timeline. So you're looking to go live as quickly as possible. How do you navigate that? How do you keep everyone happy, everyone sane? Over to you guys.
I think part of it is keeping everyone happy, is keeping everyone clear on what's going on and when, and the sort of the time requirements from those people. In terms of then navigating the question around timing of go live, which is often a big challenge on these full platform projects, it's probably fair to say that HR are a little more relaxed about the precise timing of go live. They can probably go live on a random Tuesday in July, whereas finance are much more selective, for good reason. Some clients might want to avoid going live at year end, whereas others choose to go live at year end because it gives them a much cleaner view in a full year in Workday, which makes the audit the following year that much easier as well. The key for finance is really making sure they go live and they are transacting in a full period in their Workday platform, and they close off the old ERP in the full period as well. One of the key things for finance that we hear is Workday use the term move to production, which can happen any time during the month. And I've seen a lot of clients in finance who see that as the go live date. And it's that communication of that isn't the go live date, that's just a move to production. That means you're ready to then go live. We can then time your go live to meet your requirements alongside closing off your old ERP, migrating your data, and then kicking off go live in Workday, which may well be a different date. It's likely to be a different date to your move to production.
From a HR perspective, as long as finance are happy, that's all that matters, really. I've seen go lives on all different timings for lots of different reasons. Some people want a quiet time of year, like around Christmas and stuff, the start of a new system. It's sometimes better to have the absence balances on the start date for the absences, whether that's April 1st or January 1st. But you can cope with most things as long as you've got some good guys around the data and getting a nice team of people who can pull together the data in the right state. Absence balances are probably the only real challenge on your go live date, and getting that accurate, especially if it's a moving beast, especially in a larger organization. But it's actually most important that the change management is right, and you've got the right conversations out with the business. People understand what's happening, what's about to occur, what it means to them, and that it will not be perfect, but let's run with it, because strategically this is a great implementation for the business, and very much collaborate with HR and finance working together on that go live, and actually celebrate it. You say about how do you keep sane or happy? I do think it's important to inject a bit of humour to keep people going, to realise it is an IT system. We are not in accident and emergency, as we call it in the UK, and people aren't actually dying. We are just putting an IT system live, and we've got capable hands who've done this before. And let's keep people calm and let's move forward with it.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so let's summarize. What are your golden nuggets, your top tips for a successful launch implementation as a full platform?
So for me, the top tip really is to make sure you're planning for those post-go live activities. You're planning for that period of stabilization and optimization. And that planning means that firstly, you're aware that it's going to happen. There will be those periods where you are in stabilization and optimization, but also ensuring you've got the right resources and budget to make sure you can deliver during those times. Look at the project as, although launch goes live in 26 weeks, look at it through the lens of a 12-month timescale, where in the middle you're going live and you're doing as much post-go live as you were pre-go live to optimize that solution. If you take that mindset into the project, you will then be, not surprised when you have that period post-go live, and you're more prepared to then deliver the results, and you will see more results in that 12-month timescale.
For me, it's make sure everyone's on board, focus on going live on those dates, wind that clock back to make sure you're hitting all the key milestones for go live, and as Darryl says, really understand what your changes are post go live, especially if you've got restructures and stuff. Make sure the Workday team know about it. HR and finance then need to work together on planning that out. I worked on an implementation. We went live. Some really nice dashboards were delivered post go live, and then they went from a centralized to a federated model within the business, and all these dashboards fell apart. It's really important that conversation happens around the business, and people really understand that the Workday team now need to be involved in that conversation.
And I would say, Joel, another top tip really is around engaging Workday experts to help guide you in the process through the contracting if needed. That can be a part-time advisory support, all the way through design, where you may then ramp up that assistance through to testing and then post go live. The Workday partners, and I've been on the partner side, they have a scope, a statement of work, and often their team is working on more than one project at a time. So you can't expect them to be answering all your queries and doing deep dives into every piece of functionality you want to know more about. Having that Workday expert on hand will be invaluable in allowing you to deep dive into areas you want to understand more about, apply your business needs to those areas, and then help you through that testing process, where they can sit with your team and guide them through the testing, make sure they're testing the right things in the right time, in the right way. And those experts can then also be there post-go live if you want them to be, until you're at a point where you have that in-house team or the AMS partner who will then get you through the rest of that journey through the optimization.
Excellent stuff. Okay, well, we have come to an end, unfortunately. Big thank you to Darryl and Fergus for your amazing insight into a full platform launch implementation. Some fantastic tips, information, bit of banter along the way. So yeah, just want to say a big thank you to you guys, and thank you for the fantastic insight.
Thanks, Joel. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Joel.